All right, we now move over to the NFL. Well, one of the most consistent NFL quarterbacks is he's showing some signs. He's not all that pleased with his organization. Russell Wilson complained weeks ago about all the hits he's taken throughout his career, and now there are a few trade rumors beginning to surface. Wilson says he wants to remain in Seattle, but he's reportedly said there are four destinations he would be willing to go to in a potential trade. Those teams are the Cowboys, Saints, Raiders, and Bears. Drake, it's another one of the NFL's best quarterbacks, not on the best of terms with his team. Do you see a trade on the horizon, and which of these four teams makes the most sense to you?
Well, I'm gonna say yes. I see a trade. Which are the four teams? Let me ponder on that. But let me answer the first part of that question. Why do I see a trade on the horizon? The only way I don't see a trade on the horizon if Pete Carroll all of a sudden change his way of thinking and say, "Hey, come on, Russell, I want to hear every idea you got." But I don't know if we're gonna see that. Pete Carroll is Pete Carroll, and let's make no mistake. I understand that Pete Carroll is a good coach, but the reason he's gonna be a Hall of Famer it got a lot to do with Russell Wilson. Say what you want, but he don't win a Super Bowl and get to another Super Bowl without Russell Wilson. I don't give a rip how good that defense was. Russell Wilson had something to do with it. But I think it comes to a time where like Russell Wilson, he's frustrated. He wants some things to happen. He's not getting it. Is it the same thing as Deshaun Watson? I don't necessarily think so because Deshaun Watson actually had phenomenal players that got taken away from him, whereas Russell Wilson just want phenomenal players. Um, Now, as most people have seen, they did do right. They got DJ Metcalf. They do got Tyler Lockett. They went out and got Olsen. We thought he was going to do more. But the biggest blaring like slap in the face for what Russell Wilson right now is the offensive line. Here's my thought, and here's what I've heard, but I do think this has something to do with it. I really do think so. So as Russell Wilson was sitting in the box, he's the reigning Man of the Year award, Walter Payton Man of the Year award. For those that don't know, that's given out every year for the most humanitarian player, meaning you did a lot for your community. You was an ambassador of the NFL in a good light, and you do all these great things, right? It's a humanitarian award pretty much for the NFL. And it's a really good award because hey, you get to wear that for the rest of your NFL career, and only one player gets awarded this a year. So it's a pretty prestigious award, I think. Um, so he's there to receive the award. He's there. He's talking to the commissioner. But if you actually look at Russell's face when they zoom in while he's talking to the commissioner, you see him watching the game. I myself had to think, why while Russell Wilson was sitting there in the box and he's listening and he's talking and he's watching 43-year-old Tom Brady down there with all the time in the world to order that number one with extra mac sauce, and he's just like doing his thing, and he had to think to himself, why can't I get that type of protection? Why why will the Seahawks organization not listen to what I got to say about how I think we can, make this team better? But I'm looking at Tom Brady that's clearly out of his prime, and he got to go to Tampa Bay and say, we need this, this, and this. You make that happen, let's roll. And then they listen to Tom Brady, and look, they get a Super Bowl because of it. And he's like, what have I not done to this point so I can be heard? And it's a lot of things that go in this with Russell. You got to understand, he's a short guy. They got drafted in the third round. He was a guy that was overlooked 3 years at NC State. He had to go to Wisconsin to get the respect that he ended up getting. And then, not to mention, even on those Seahawks teams that did really, really well, who got a lot of that praise? It was the defense. It was Pete Carroll. It was Dan Quinn. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people undersold Russell Wilson. Even to this day, he gets undersold. So now, I think in his mind, he's just thinking like, I don't get it. Like, what could I do to get what I'm trying to get? And now, as we talked about earlier, add Russell Wilson to the list of quarterbacks that's starting to be a little more vocal about their situation. So So that's that part of the question. Which four teams make the most sense? I'm looking at Cowboys, Saints, Raiders, Bears. What you? I guess the Saints gotta close that saga with Drew Brees first. Then we'll get to that. I'm looking at the Raiders or Bears, because the Cowboys, I think that's probably Dak's job. I think unless he doesn't come back and he doesn't look like the Dak we seen before the injury. But I think the Cowboys gonna roll with Dak. I think that's his job. As far as the Saints go, we gotta see what's going on with Drew Brees. We gotta see if they really done with Taysom Hill. What happens with Jameis Winston? They got some other things we gotta look at. The reason I say the Raiders is this: we know Marcus Mariota is out of there as the backup. Derek Carr has never gave you the feel of this is their quarterback. Ever since John Gruden been there, I haven't felt like this is Derek Carr's team. So I don't think it would take much for the Raiders to, give up whatever picks they got left and go and get Russell Wilson. But the team I think that makes the most sense is the Bears. Because when the last time the Bears had a decent quarterback? I don't even remember the last time they had a quarterback worth talking about. Was it Rex Grossman? Like I don't remember. Like I don't remember the last time they had a decent quarterback that was worth talking about. But I guarantee you this: you bring in Russell Wilson, that's a game changer. Now it's time. Now the defense gonna want to play better. Now the offensive line gonna want to play better. Now you got Robinson and those guys saying, "Hold up, wait a minute. I might not complain as much with Russell Wilson here." So that's something to look at. I know his contract might be a problem, but I'm looking at the Raiders or Bears. I think the Bears is the best situation for him. I really do. So we'll see how that goes. But I do think at this point, right, if you're not going to give this guy, if you're not going to at least entertain what he's saying, maybe you don't want to give him everything he's asking. But if you're not going to entertain what this guy is saying, then you might as well get off of him. If you're really not going to give him an offensive line to protect him, that means you could throw anybody back there. Whatever. You don't care about the quarterback, so throw anybody back there. So I'm not mad at Russell Wilson. In today's game, like we talked about earlier, he is one of about 4 or 5 top-notch quarterbacks that got something to say now. It's just becoming that time. That we're getting more vocal. It's real NBA-ish right now in the NFL, but hey, you pay these guys all this money, they should have a right to say something. So let's see how that go. I hope this work out for Russell. He's one of my best. I like him a lot because of his attitude. This is out of character for Russell, but hey, sometimes I ain't no killer until you push me, So I feel like that's how Russell is taking this now. Like he's tired of being spit on. He's tired of being closed out. He's tired of being backhand. And he wants some respect, and we'll see how that turn out for him and the Seahawks organization.
Yeah, I want to start with a question for you. Did you say that you think the Bears are the best, that they're the best destination for him out of these 4 teams?
Because I think,
or do you think the Bears out of all these 4 teams could use him the most?
Okay, right. All right, I think the Bears out of all these teams could use him the most. I'm sorry, you're right. Okay, because the best would probably be the Cowboys or the Saints. To be honest, I feel like because they got the weapons, they got the more balanced teams. But I'm sorry, I didn't clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah, because I heard that. I just want to make sure I heard you right, because that kind of threw me for a little loop. Because I do agree. The Bears, we know they need something back there, but let me get to that moment. I'll start just like you did. I don't think there will be a trade, and I think there's good reason. There's good reason for these trade rumors to be out there. Russell Wilson, he's being a bit more vocal than he used to. He's been there 9 years, and we know in the early years there was a lot more success than there has been lately. You had a Super Bowl victory, you had a Super Bowl appearance. In the last 4 seasons, I think they missed the playoffs in 2017, and then 2 out of the last 3 years they've been one and done. So although I think the Seahawks with Pete Carroll, with Russell Wilson, they are still one of the safest bets. When you look at your preseason playoff bracket or whatever you're doing, they're still one of the safest bets to be there. But the success has not followed for a multitude of reasons. As you well know, the offensive line has been, it just seems like it's been something they just continue to neglect. And I think it's kind of the reason that, oh well, Russell Wilson, we have one of these guys who can just he's just so elite at his ability to escape pressure that we can invest less in the offensive line because of that. And there's some truth to that, but I think they've consistently neglected it to such a degree that Russell Wilson, he's still getting hit, an absurd amount of times. I mean, there's this number. He's been sacked 394 times in 9 seasons, and he's never missed a game. And that is the most in a quarterback's first 9 seasons since the merger, going all the way back to 1970. So he's getting sacked to historic proportions, and we know that if there was another guy, if it was some statue back there in the form of an Eli Manning or Philip Rivers or one of those type of guys, I don't know what it would be. You could be well over 500. But I think because Russell Wilson is being vocal, he's being more vocal. He's letting these guys know more. I think I have to believe that Seattle's got to take this seriously. There's no way Seattle can afford to lose Russell Wilson.
Right.
And because of that, I have to believe Pete Carroll, and maybe more so than Pete Carroll, the general manager John Schneider, who I keep hearing everything so great about him, and he's done a good job. I just like to see the offensive and defensive lines get a little bit more attention. But I think because of Russell Wilson being more vocal, and he's got every right to be, and he's been class personified since he's been up there. We haven't heard anything up to a couple weeks or last month when he was talking about, I'm taking a lot of hits up here now, guys. We ain't heard anything from Russell Wilson. He's been, you know, a like I said, class personified. Nothing negative I have to say against Russell Wilson. Because of that, I think Seattle's got to take this seriously. I think it would be in their best interest to let him have a little bit more impact or say in some of the decisions that occur, be it on personnel. I think he's reached that level. You talk about guys like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, and some of these. Maybe you throw Drew Brees in there, even though he's retired now. I think Russell Wilson's in that category of quarterbacks at the absolute elite level where they deserve a little bit more input than your run of the mill quarterback. That's where I'm at. And I just can't imagine, although it's fun to talk about, I just can't imagine the Seahawks letting him go. And I don't think there's any return you could get that's going to be it's going to be of the requisite value. But since we're talking about it, I think the best spot for Russell Wilson out of these four teams, and I'd be interested to know the thought process behind some of them, but I think New Orleans is the the best spot because of the the stability they've had there with Sean Payton since he took over. No Drew Brees, so there's a little bit of uncertainty there. So if the Saints had interest and they say, well, you know what, we actually if I think Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, I think they could do some things with that. I think they could have a similar situation they've had with Drew Brees and Taysom Hill the last several years. If Sean Payton has been able to do something with the decision making of Jameis Winston, they get that under control. That could be something worth watching. But if Sean Payton has the choice between Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, then it's going to be no doubt. I think the Saints, that's something they'd be interested in. The only question would be, would they be able to come up with a package that's good enough? And the same can be said with all these other teams. You think if Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones could get their hands on Russell Wilson, they would absolutely be all about it. The same thing with the Raiders, John Gruden. When we've talked about it on several occasions. It doesn't appear that he's never been all that enamored with Derek Carr, and of course Chicago, Matt Nagy, and just whatever quarterback on any given day. The one thing, and I'll say Dallas, New Orleans, and Las Vegas. The one thing they all have, or up to this point, the Cowboys, they had some turnover recently, but traditionally they've all had great offensive lines. So I think there's a subtle hint in there with the list that he's given out to the Seahawks saying, have you noticed what these teams do right, particularly New Orleans and Las Vegas right now? They protect the quarterback. hello, that can we get some of that here? Because I think Russell Wilson said he still wants to play there, but give me some protection. I don't want to be 38 years of age at some point still having to run for my life every play. I like to be back here with a little bit of security. But the one thing I don't understand is I'd love to be able to ask Russell Wilson what's attractive about the Bears. I mean, do you like Matt Nagy that much? Because outside of Matt Nagy, I don't know what the deal is. I don't think Chicago is an attractive destination for a multitude of reasons. But the most foremost unattractiveness is this guy Ryan Pace, who is still the GM. And you think Ryan Pace is going to be able to surround you with the requisite pieces to get you back where you want to go? If that's the case, just go ahead and stay put where you are. I don't think Chicago and Ryan Pace and his infinite wisdom is going to do the trick. But in the end, since we're entertaining this, I think New Orleans is the by far the best destination for Russell Wilson and for the Saints.
I just, you know what? I would say this about Chicago though. Even though Chicago don't seem like the best, it's still an upgrade from what he got offensively with Seattle. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think their line is a little better. I think their run game a little better. I think he has better targets with Seattle. But then, that it depends on who you talk to on what day that you're talking to him. Who has so my guess is he just feels as if offensively they're set up a little better. I mean, the offensive line ain't trash. You know what I mean? The run game ain't trash. Um, what you gonna say?
Yeah, I think there's something there for Chicago. I think Matt Nagy can coach, and I think their offensive line is probably a little bit better, and maybe their run game is a little bit better. I thought David Montgomery, he had a sort of a somewhat breakout season,
Right.
and I don't know, maybe there's something to be said for that one season that the Bears won the North and Mitch Trubisky looked like a quarterback on the rise. Maybe he's
And
thinking, oh, if he can get that out of Mitch Trubisky, I can thrive in that offense. Because I think that's another thing. Um, you never hear about Seattle offensive coaches. Even though Daryl Bevel, he got some love for head coaching jobs, but a Seattle offensive coordinator never seems like the next guy to like take over a team. Really, they don't have for Pete Carroll teams, it's always the defensive coordinator who's the hot commodity, whether it's a Gus Bradley or a Dan Quinn or somebody like that. It's never the offensive guy, and that just kind of
right.
seems to be the way it's gone with a Pete Carroll team. Although it's a great combination, Pete Carroll, even though they win and they do a lot of good, it doesn't seem to always be in the best interest of Russell Wilson. Pete Carroll's a run game and defense type of coach.
And Chicago is a playoff team. Just throw that out there. They wasn't impressive, but they did make the playoffs with the scraps that they had. So Russell Wilson might be a guy that can, celebrate that just a
Make
little
them
bit.
make them serious 17 stuff.